spent years investigating a site called Chewbacca in the Black Desert of Jordan, as they believed that the ancient people who lived there could reveal more about the development of agriculture, one of humanity's greatest innovations. In their search of the ruins of a fireplace, the researchers found the ashes of an ancient meal, and the contents of the meal may challenge traditional ideas about the development of agriculture. This discovery in Jordan, dating back 14,400 years, has the potential to rewrite human history. While it is widely known that the earliest humans were hunter-gatherers, foraging for edible plants and hunting animals for sustenance, agriculture and the sedentary lifestyle that accompanies it are relatively new inventions. However, there are still some hunter-gatherer societies in existence, such as the San in southern Africa, the Baka in Central Africa, and the Copper Inuit in the Arctic. Experts study these societies to understand what ancient hunter-gatherer societies may have been like. While each community is different, they share some similar traits. Most are small, with just a few dozen members, and labor is often divided by gender, with men hunting and women foraging. However, there appears to be little differentiation between the positions and roles of members of these communities. The transition from hunting and gathering to settled farming was probably a gradual process, and several different societies around the world began to practice agriculture independently of one another. Great civilizations such as ancient Egypt, Sumer, and Mesopotamia, and the Indus Valley of northern India, all had sophisticated agricultural practices. Evidence also suggests that some of our ancestors' first steps towards agriculture were taken after the Pleistocene Ice Age had ended around 11,700 years ago. The conclusion of this era marked a notable change in the climate, which in turn affected ecosystems around the world. It is possible that people at the time began managing non-domesticated plants and animals in a forerunner of what would become farming. Cultivating their own crops may have given early farmers confidence that they would not run out of food during lean seasons, and domesticated animals could be stable sources of milk and meat, which were not guaranteed from wild animals. Plants were first domesticated around 12,000 years ago, while animals were tamed around 2,000 years later. Between 8,000 and 10,000 years ago, people in East Asia and the Americas began to cultivate different crops, such as wheat and barley in Southwest Asia, rice in East Asia, and squash in what is now the Americas. Overall, the transition from a hunting and gathering lifestyle to agriculture was a significant shift in human history that had far-reaching consequences. Mexico and Peru, both former hunter-gatherer societies, transitioned into settled communities and constructed homes that were meant to last for extended periods. This allowed for populations to grow, particularly in Southwest Asia, where farming villages were established around 10,000 years ago. This region, known as the Fertile Crescent, eventually became Mesopotamia and birthplace of one of the first great civilizations. Agricultural practices in the Americas varied depending on the environment, as there were no suitable animals for plowing. For example, the Incas built terraced fields in Peru, while the Maya and Aztecs utilized complex irrigation systems. Similarly, China also developed farming communities, with evidence suggesting the cultivation of rice, millet, hemp, and Chinese cabbage as early as 8,000 years ago. Paddy fields were later invented in approximately 4330 BC to create ideal wetland environments for growing rice. The Natufians were a hunter-gatherer culture living in Southwest Asia during the transition to agriculture. Chewbacca 1, located in eastern Jordan's Black Desert near the Syrian border, is the first Natufian site outside of the core zone to be thoroughly explored by archaeologists. This site has provided new information about Natufian food habits, indicating a more sedentary lifestyle than preceding cultures. Chewbacca 1 predates the Ardeer found in nearby Jebel Kerma, suggesting that the Natufians lived in the area earlier than previously thought. The Black Desert is a volcanic field spanning parts of Syria, Saudi Arabia, and Jordan, and is the largest volcanic field in Arabia, with an area of over 19,000 square miles. Although the Natufians lived at Chewbacca 1 over 14,000 years ago, Farming did not become widespread in the area for another 4,000 years. Nonetheless, the Natufians' transition to a more sedentary lifestyle had a profound impact on their diet, as demonstrated by the excavations at Chewbacca 1 between 2012 and 2015. Although the site was initially discovered in the 1990s with the help of Jordan's Department of Antiquities, archaeologists from the University of Copenhagen took the lead, while experts from the University of Cambridge and University College London, UCL, were also involved. While there were once multiple structures at Chewbacca 1, the researchers focused on the two best-preserved stone buildings. The structures were constructed from basalt, a common material in the area, and contained tools, animal bones, and even a human skeleton. The team found that the buildings had their own fireplaces, which were also constructed from basalt boulders. The ashes inside the fireplaces were radiocarbon dated and showed that the structures were from the Natufian era. The researchers analyzed the ashes to see what the Natufians had been cooking and eating and found that they had been making their own bread. Despite not being farmers, the Natufians had somehow developed the processes needed to create bread, using incorn wheat, oats, barley, and club rush tubers. The plant material was ground together to make high-quality flour, and the bread was made without yeast or raising agents. Flatbread, likely similar to modern pita bread, was probably baked on a hot stone next to the fire or in the ashes themselves, since there was no evidence of ovens at Chewbacca 1. Flatbreads were popular in the ancient world since they were easy to stack and could be baked without an oven. The research was carried out by Laura Gonzalez Carretero and her team at UCL, who used scanning electron microscopy to analyze the samples from the fireplaces. The results showed that the Natufians had somehow developed the necessary processes to make bread, even before the start of agriculture in Southwest Asia. The discovery of prehistoric bread has been investigated before, but new technology means that scientists can now examine its composition more accurately than ever before. Previously conducted investigations of Natufian sites have uncovered ancient grinding tools and flint sickle blades, indicating that the Natufians were involved in manipulating and interacting with plants. Recent research has now provided evidence to support this theory. Food technologist Antonella Pasqualone, who was not involved in the study, has supported the findings, suggesting that flatbreads may have been an ideal way to bridge the gap between hunter-gatherers and farmers. Another expert, Patrick McGovern, has suggested that if the Natufians were manipulating cereals for bread, they may also have been making beer. The importance of bread in modern society extends beyond its nutritional value and has symbolic value in religion and important ceremonies. The Christian communion, Passover, and Matzo are examples of this. Investigating whether the making of bread was a factor in people beginning to cultivate cereals is the next aim of the researchers. The Danish Council for Independent Research has awarded more money to continue the research, which includes identifying which plants were preferred for bread making and whether they were the plants that would later be cultivated by farmers. Recreating Natufian bread is also on the agenda. While it may take some adjustment for modern taste buds, it is seen as a way to connect with our ancestors and gain insight into how we have developed as a species. Subscribe to the channel for more updates.